If you do not see the not self here and there and everywhere, what do you see? Yeah, maybe I just read you the whole quote of that because it's so fantastic. It's so sweet. Yeah. Okay, so this person's been questioning about the nature of self. Okay, let's tackle it another way. This is Papaji speaking. When you see the self, don't see the not self at the same time. If you do not see the not self here and there and everywhere, what will you see? Questioner. Only the self. Papaji. Only the self everywhere. The not self doesn't exist, and the self is not absent at all. So you will see self everywhere. When I say everywhere, it is nowhere. Nowhere itself, because no distance is involved, no here and somewhere. Self alone is total awareness of self. And all those waves and eddies and droplets and bubbles, all are just the ocean. So according to your question, I see the ocean is saying, I see the ocean within myself, but not in the waves or other eddies, tides, bubbles. There I do not see. So you have to see first the ocean within the ocean, self within the self, and this will include everything else. You will contain everything else. The self contains everything. There is nothing apart from it. This is why you can call it emptiness. There is nothing beyond emptiness. All is emptiness. Nothing ever exists. That's from Wake Up and Roar. Papaji! Yeah, it's really cool. I'm so enjoying studying these books with people. Yeah. This is it, baby. What more? So the idea, I mean, I just feel a bit like, after just such a beautiful quote, like, trying to say something in the wake of that is like, yeah. So right now, the mind, this beautiful thing that we call the mind, that we don't even know what it is. Like, what is the mind? Like, we've made up the word mind. So then we once we make it up, we're then like, okay, so this mind that we've made up, this idea of mind, because we don't know where this is, what is the mind? Like, if we pull everything apart, where does it exist? In our cells? In our brain? Like, where do thoughts pop from? Like, they pop up in the air? We don't know where thoughts come from, but we call it the mind because that's the socially acceptable thing in society, and then we all have like a matched meaning of that. Okay, mind is this invisible thing that none of us can see, but it's kind of where thoughts happen, where thinking happens, where personal awareness happens. And inside this thing that we've made up called mind, we then divide reality. So the mind then says, me, them, here, there. I am going from here to there. There is Lisa there, and she is more advanced than me. She's less advanced than me. She's over there, I'm here. And prior to that, when we're babies, when our mind hasn't quite developed, and you could say that we're still mindless, we don't have a sense of here and there. There is crying, there is hand shaking, there is war happening, there is room happening, and there is no mine, me, them, they. There is every goddamn thing, and it's not divided. The ability to think and divide and to think that you could be somewhere and something else could be somewhere else has gone, and so then everything is encompassed. And everything is without any meaning. free from meaning. It's just here, appearing. There's no me and computer, there's simply computer. There's no me and, what is that thing, an interface with the microphone. It's simply happening. Me is an imagination. In actuality, in this moment, there is no me except in thought and in a seeming energetic contraction. It's simply thought. It's so spectacular, this subject. There is an appearance of someone in order to have complex communication, and most humans have fallen into a deep sleep believing that the appearance of that person is actually them and that they exist as a thought and an imagination and something that never quite exists now but's always in past and future. So two-ness is only ever an idea which we as humans have made up. It's not a truth. But society is enveloped in that truth. They're so enmeshed with that truth that they can't remember that there could possibly be something else. 12 years ago when I first started speaking, people were murderous if you ever brought this up. Now, 12 years later, mindfulness, Buddhism, Tao, spirituality, consciousness is a bit more hip. It's a bit more out there. And so now, you know, if you're okay, it's acceptable, these types of things. But 12 years ago, 20 years ago or 25 years ago when I first started, it was like you couldn't talk about these things without people wanting to section you. But yeah, that's an insanity. Because what are we prior to thought, and why has that never been thought about? Because thought is a survival mechanism, and so thought wants to survive, so it doesn't want to think about its own absence. But it's the most important thing there is, because what is prior to thought? Thought cannot be the dictator of life. It's something that's appearing and disappearing, and what is it disappearing and appearing in? So what is the essence, what is the origin of everything? Thought can't be the origin of everything. It's coming in and going, it's a coming and going. So what is that which is stable? What is the stability? What is the stability here? And the stability here is beyond what I could possibly put into words. What anyone could possibly put into words. It's where the words disappear into. It's the pause between that. So what is happening in the gaps between your thoughts? Where are you? Who are you when you're not thinking about yourself? There might be an energetic contraction, but what is even that? If you don't think about it, what would even be an energetic contraction, and where would it be happening? You can only know that it's happening in the body because you're thinking about it. So it's like they're dependent on each other. That's the contraction, the idea of somebody perceiving a contraction. Who would perceive that contraction? So there is this life force which is aware of itself, but not aware of itself and conscious of itself as a person, as a thought. It's conscious of itself prior to thought, and that consciousness is not separate from everything. And I'm not talking about the subconscious. I'm not talking about the ability to be able to look at your personal dynamics or be aware of yourself on a personal level. I'm talking about the consciousness that's there all the time, that's registering the person being conscious of itself and coming and going, that is conscious and unconscious. It's unconscious of its dynamics. It's a bit of a mishmash that all these words are so similar and the same almost, like consciousness, awareness, And all teachers use different words for different things. Yeah. This is absolute freedom. If it hadn't been for non-duality, I would have had a very difficult life. I'm not saying I have a perfect life now. I've just spoken to you all about online abuse I've received. In the flow of things, life comes and goes. But internally, there was a freedom that became present, which is always here, which changed the personality, which changed the emotional dashboard of this character. It made everything a lot lighter. And then it made a connection to a freedom that's always here. And that affects the character, that affects the character's actions. It doesn't make her perfect. She still gets irritated. Khaleesi still freaks her out when she hides from her in the garden. Khaleesi loves doing that. She doesn't really know that she's hiding from me. She calls it hunting for an animal and being in the frozen position inside a bush in camouflage. Lisa calls it hiding because we have different ways of interpreting the world and seeing things, like most people do. And when I say to her, "Why'd you hide from me?" she's like, "I'm not hiding. I might have just got my camouflage vest on, but that's for the animals. Not for you, woman. Stop being so narcissistic and self-centered." And I might have clashes with loved ones because we have differences of opinions. But it doesn't take away from this connection to something. And that connection is actually in everything. It's the birthright of all things. And it's not just a connection, it is who you are. But we call it connection because it's like waking back up to it. It's like illuminating itself. Yeah, I was trying to think of a nice metaphor there, but couldn't think of one. Yeah. And you know, psychology wouldn't have been enough. Psychology has helped me tremendously in my life because I don't always have the best responses to things on the human level, and it's helped me understand relationships and what's going on in my body-mind and what my body-mind is asking and saying on my unconscious and subconscious. But it didn't remove it as such. It helped me change it, but it didn't remove the underlying suffering, the underlying agony of being only a human, of not remembering myself, that underlying seeking. And that's the same for thousands of people that have come into this subject. It's fewer than it needs to be, and it's fewer than it should be. But for thousands of people that have come to this subject, it's immense freedom. You can have a difficult personality, you can have a difficult childhood. You know, in therapy, it's like you had a difficult childhood. It's like, well, you know, you're going to be for the rest of your life healing from that. But this is beyond that. You can have had a difficult childhood. You can be a difficult person and know this freedom and wake up to this freedom. You can have messed up your life. You can have like conned and lied and cheated and finagled and done all these things and still wake up to this. You can be the saint or the sinner. It's not about perfection. Being perfect is about a game in the flow of life. It's about a person wanting to get something from other people. If you're perfect, then you can get things from other people. It's also empathy as well, all different things where people want to be perfect. Narcissism. But in the end, this isn't about being perfect. I am completely imperfectly perfect on the human level. I make so many mistakes and so many not mistakes. And in the end, from the bigger perspective of things, there is no mistake. It's all perfectly in line. So perfect. It's beyond our comprehension. And this really is everything you've ever wanted. This really is the freedom that's wanted. There is nothing else in the end. This is so present, this is so free, just as it is now. Like just giving up. You know, you can work on your psychology, I'm totally into that, but just giving all of that up now. Like you being better, working out, getting into your karma, what are you feeling now? Like even on the body level, like so there might be like burning in the neck because you haven't spoken up to your mother and told her that she's got to stop talking, or there might be burning in your guts because of fear about something, or like all different types of things, but just dropping all of it, just like really allowing it all, and then at the same time being none of it all. Like no, what is it with no thought, with no interpretation? There is sensation that is beyond sensation. There is sensation that becomes invisible, totally empty. There's nothing there experiencing it. There is simply life happening for nobody, free.